I've always been a lover of vampires.
It's all sex and death and rock and roll, and you know, it's all those things that you've come to love.
It was all about training the actors, getting them into the wire, getting them comfortable. Most of our cast were pretty physically fit. They were all working with trainers.
The vampires can all leap at superhuman levels or fly at times. They have super strength, in effect. Akasha has powers that they don't have. So a lot of what we'll be seeing is a combination of prosthetics, CGI, and a lot of wire shots.
Figuring out, how does a vampire take off? How does a vampire land? That was a lot of trial and error.
Basically, it's attached to your waist, this rig there's either 2 wires that come up on either side, or 1 wire that comes from behind your back. And depending on the move, the 2 wires obviously limits you to if you got 1 wire here, you can do twists and turns. So sometimes they'd spin you up and they'd spin you sideways, and you'd have to turn so that you could turn. And say the camera was there, you'd turn right into it. We did work for like a month. We'd have an hour every day, and we'd just fly up on these things, and it was great. I loved it.
Stuart and Vincent were particularly good at it. They're very adroit. A lot of the best visual effects in the film are in-camera bits of acting.
Amazingly enough, we didn't have to do as much work. It was the stunt people who they were incredible. They were pulling all these wires that were lifting us up. And it was amazing because we did a test one day, a camera test for the jumping to see if we could do it. And I had one person who was, 40 feet away, and I was going to bite their neck. So I'm 40 feet away, they lift me up, I fly over to her, I literally land right beside her and bit her neck. And then it was just incredible that you could do that. You could actually, but it wasn't really us. We just had to learn how to land properly. They had to just do all the pulling. So it was really a tribute to the stuntmen, basically, how good the things were.
Anything complicated can be broken down into parts that are manageable. So if you have a good team, which we do, you can start shooting, say for example, a vampire who is going to come flying in the air on wires, and then he's going to get zapped. Okay, well the zapping isn't going to happen here, it's going to happen in post-production. And so all you need is just to get him up in the air and do that, and you have to trust that all the rest of it's going to be there. So you sort of do it in pieces on faith.
The ancients have decided to turn on me and kill me, so that's where all these disgusting little marks come from. I've been bit. It takes about an hour and a half for the whole 9 yards.
What we're doing is applying a little prosthetic for bite wounds that Lestat has just bitten Akasha. And this is quite a serious bite, not a gentle one. He's now trying to suck the blood out of her. So we've just applied the prosthetic. We're going to colour this in a minute and put the blood on it, and we're done. Bits of Alia's body, and then from that sculpture we make a mould, and then the foam is actually made like making a souffle. It's beaten up in a mixer and then poured into the mould and then baked in an oven. And then when these are used, they're used once and then thrown away. A lot of work before we get here. With rubber, it's a strange thing because the rubber itself would look like rubber if we made it the same colour as a person's skin. So we actually have to cheat the camera, and we actually make the rubber pieces more red, and then the camera believes it's seeing a bit deeper into the skin tone. If we actually make up a prosthetic to match a skin, it will come up quite yellow on camera. So it's all a question of just knowing what colours come up where. powder this and then blood.
That is not the stuff. That is not the stuff.
My name is Greg McMurray. I'm the visual effects supervisor for Queen of the Damned. The vampire immolation in our story was designed to start around sort of the heart and the blood and her power over their blood, because they all vampires share Akasha's blood. In the bar sequence, these are just young punk vampires that hang out there that all think they're pretty hot until they meet Akasha. We knew we were making our vampires catch on fire, and as we shot each one, we threw a little interactive light around the room. But as we started putting all these big elements of actual flame and fire on each individual vampire, we had to add a lot more to the room that we never really anticipated. And by adding all these little techniques and reflections and kicks off of different objects in the room, it made the stuff that we added months later look like it had always been in the room.
In the books, the vampires can travel so fast that you couldn't even see them. So we actually slowed them down and had a trail going behind them as if they were so fast that you couldn't even, your eye couldn't catch up.
In this piece that we're looking at now, it's one of the very early tests that we got into. We filmed a stuntman on wires standing in one side of the room, and then filmed him landing at another side of the room. And we went through a lot of permutations, some just where he faded out, some that he fades out in a series of what we called acid trails, just rippled images. And so the principle of the vampire flight or the vampire speed was that if the vampire only moved a short distance, he would barely fade out at all. If he moves a great distance, there would be a big period of time in the middle where he would be completely invisible. Some of the tests we went through was to actually show the vampire's body maybe coming apart. We went through many different processes until basically we came up with this process that just each frame just slightly faded out more and more and more. So Don, this is the plate we're going to work on today. And I know you've already removed the wires and created some elements. Why don't you show me the elements that you've made for us on this piece?
Well, this is the shot with the wires removed. We've created mats to lift out each character, because each one comes from a different direction. After we get the clean mat off of them, we can create elements that give the trail effect, and then bringing them all together so that each one has trails.
Greg McMurray built a robot that would travel down a street, and as the camera slowed down, so everything started to go faster by it, it had to pick up speed.
It was really just a dolly that could start in a real-time move and then slow down till the point where it was moving so slowly that we could hardly see it move at all.
Hi, I'm Andy McDonald. I'm a compositor on the film, work at Creo Visual Effects, and working here on the end shot on Queen of the Damned. Well, we have the original green screen, and we had the original background. What we did is we stabilized that background and did a little time warp, and then just did a basic composite, making sure that they stayed in contact with the ground. We did a few little experiments, keying off of certain images in the background. We created some sort of graphic elements that we combined into the shot. We just took like a piece of the clock and kind of a piece of their shadow and pulled them through. We also made a few flares, and actually a few of the flares we just got a video camera and got some mag light, and there you have it.
I think it's quite a succinct image to say, these two characters walking off into eternity.
One of the things I found exciting about doing this particular vampire movie is I wanted it to be a movie that had effects in it that we could believe would have happened and wouldn't have necessarily shown up in the newspaper. I wanted people to walk down a dark alley and look over and say, that could be a vampire bar over there.
Getting the rock star stuff right was the most difficult thing. In fact, I said to the studio quite early on, let's get these songs done to make sure this film's going to work.
We found out that Jonathan Davis was very interested in effect, spreading his wings and doing a score.
We were on before they even started casting.
Yeah, we had to start doing music before the movie was shot, before they knew who was doing what. So we basically set the vibe, I guess.
Yeah, with direction from Michael Reimer, the director. He told us what he wanted for the songs.
We spent a long time thinking about what an 18th century French nobleman would sound like, you know, a turned vampire would sound like in the present.
We wrote them, some here when we were in town, and the others is when we were out on the road. Me and Richard did a couple songs going down about 50, 80 miles an hour down the road, bouncing in the back of the bus.
2 o'clock in the morning down the Jersey Turnpike.
Yeah, totally just trying to play. Yeah, glad we both came together, and it was like a rock vibe. We did these rock songs, and Richard totally brought something totally different. It made me think totally different than what I do.
Michael Reimer directed us to only write songs that were inspired by the story, and he had specific emotions that he wanted us to get across, and specific things he didn't want us to do.
I guess my main instruction to them was, don't be too literal about the songs.
It really wasn't that hard. I would just think about being alive for 700 or 800 years and what it would be like. You'd have really no friends. You'd be very lonely. You'd think life really sucks. You can't die.
What I have always calling.
Being that I lived in New Orleans for a year or so, of course I had to familiarize myself with Anne Rice. This is the first time I've ever came in almost in a way as a session singer or just as a singer, not someone who was writing the song. And it was a different thing for me, and I probably wouldn't have done it for just anyone, but since it was Jonathan and we had a relationship and he wanted me to do it, and this song in particular, I agreed to it.
You see, I cannot be forsaken because I'm not the only one. We walk amongst you, feeding, raping. Must we hide from everyone?
I respect the hell out of Jonathan. I think he's fantastic, and in fact, his first record was one of the inspirations for me to start delving into this genre of music, whatever you want to call it. Just get a little bit more aggressive, a little darker, a little bit heavier.
I hear it fading, I can't speak it, or else you will dig my grave.
I love Anne Rice. I love her books. I've read all the Vampire Chronicles, and I think it's a wonderful world that she creates in her stories.
We'll be fine. Then your body will be mine.
I was asked if I would be interested in singing a song on the Queen of the Damned soundtrack, and I said of course I would, because I'm such a big fan of Anne Rice. I've read all of the whole Chronicles, so I felt an honor.
Then your body will be mine.
One of the things I noticed when I was listening to the versions that he had sang over was the lyrical content of the songs that he co-wrote. I thought it was really fitting to the actual book because he does become, a rock star in the book, and he does perform, and he sings about being a vampire and, hunting upon people. And so Jonathan incorporated those things into the lyrics, which I thought was very important.
It was a lot of fun for me to sort of interpret something that he wrote. I didn't want to do it exactly like he would have done it. I tried to kind of give it my own flavor, but since he did write the song, it was very different from something that I would have written.
The first thing was the concept, which was in the book. It's in an old-fashioned concert theatre. Couldn't do that because of the immolations. We have vampires exploding, and you just can't have fire inside like that. But I also thought, gee, this concert has to be sort of the concert of all concerts. I was inspired by an event that happens every year in the California desert called the Burning Man. So rather than do it in a theatre, we put the concert into Death Valley.
When Michael started to research stuff, he went to these, goth clubs in LA, and he went to Anne Rice's Halloween ball, and it was a big eye-opener for him. And even in terms of when we were in Australia, and we had to get people like extras, or, we had to get 3,000 extras. And like that, suddenly 3,000 people in black, all in black, turn up in the middle of the desert. And it's quite a sight when you see literally 3,000 people get off, 20 buses, and they all start walking towards you on this very flat plain of desert. It was amazing.
I remember, first of all, how great the crowds were. They were there for 3 nights from 6 to 6. Outside, really cold, wearing scanty goth outfits. And it was unbelievable how they were just really into it. They learned the lyrics.
And they were amazing too. Great crowd. Like, they really loved it. And we played the songs over and over and over again, as you do, because you're trying to make a film. And they never got bored. They just kept going, kept shouting and screaming and having a great time.
Did you think it's cold to walk right up? Just take my life and forget. Well, that's you.
It was fun. Like when you walk on the stage, even though you weren't doing anything like me, and the producer, I'm just walking around a little bit in the background, you feel the power of you're on a stage, and there's a bunch of people out there, and you start to feel almost that rock star thing.
Even though they're extras and they're, they're shouting because they've been told action, it doesn't matter. It was just incredible. And also because I guess the music was like stadium level, and I was miming, so I was trying not to sing, but I kept singing, and by the end of 2 days I had no voice left, absolutely just shreds. I couldn't even speak.
It was the most complicated thing we did, but we were very prepared for it, and it was actually the easiest thing that we did. That we didn't ever fall behind there, even though it was really complicated. The score captured both the visceral aspects of being a vampire, but also this kind of like perverse sexiness that vampirism has.
Jonathan had never scored a film before, so he's been learning a lot about orchestral scoring techniques and conducting and all of this, and he's been a more than willing student. He's been a quick study.
That work?
That's way better.
Yeah, I'll teach you.
It's nice I don't have to make conventional songs where you got a verse, chorus, do this. It's like whatever, just whatever fits the scene, and it's a challenge.
I mean, this is a great sort of movie to go crazy with on a score, and these guys have really just taken it to another level.
The orchestra is a very dark orchestra. We're skewing it toward the bottom end of the orchestra. It's going to be a very large bass section, big cello section, more trombones than the norm, lots of French horns, no upper woodwinds, all lower woodwinds, contrabassoons, contrabass clarinets, like that. It just gives it kind of a roar. Emil Richards, our head of our percussion section, had taken the guts of an old piano and just sits there and smacks it with a big mallet, and the strings rattle and resonate.
My fans would definitely dig this. It's just a different side of me. It's not that far of a departure, my singing style or anything like that. I think if they'd be interested in just seeing what I like to do by myself, separated writing with Richard, and I think it's, in fact, more emotional. So I think they'll dig it. You just gotta come out and check it out. I hope y'all do.